What's up, sports fans? This is the Lucas Ross Sports Channel. It is time to give you my official 2025 Big 12 football projections for the upcoming 2025 college football season. I have already done the SEC and the Big 10, those projections for those two conferences. If you have not seen those videos, be sure to go back and check them out right here on the channel for the last couple of days. So now we're doing the Big 12. We got the ACC coming up tomorrow, and that will conclude our official projections for every single Power 4 conference and also every single team. So we're going to give you now my Big 12 projections for 2025. I want to make this clear, this is not an official prediction. These are simply projections based off of how tough each and every team's schedule was and kind of how good we expect each team to be. So let's go ahead and jump right into these projections and projected records for 2025 for the Big 12. So we'll start here at the top. We got BYU as the only team projected to go 10-2. So yeah, BYU is the only team that can win, probably 10 games in my opinion here in the Big 12 for 2025. I like the way the schedule sets up here for the Cougars. Don't know if they can be as good as they were from last year. They were definitely a surprise team in my opinion. But just looking at this team, they look like they have a lot of experience and they could be a top 25 team. So yeah, BYU sitting with a projection of 10-2, but wouldn't be surprised if BYU probably did drop, to like 9-3 with all these other teams in the Big 12, or maybe 8-4. But if they go 8-4, I don't think that's going to be a disappointment because the priority in the Big 12 is just definitely wide open, and this is a very tough conference to project, and that's why you're seeing all these next teams here projected to go 9-3. The Big 12 was just really hard to project for me, and it's also a very tough conference to predict and everything. Again, there's so much priority in this conference, and it's just definitely wide open. And when all the newcomers came in the Big 12 last year, that made the Big 12 just more exciting. So yeah, you don't have any top teams in the Big 12, and you don't have any bad teams in the Big 12, and you also don't have that team that dominates the Big 12 every year. That's just why this conference is just so hard to predict. But you look at Arizona State, Colorado, Iowa State, and Kansas State. These are all four teams projected to go 9-3. Arizona State, they were a big surprise as well from last year. We'll see if they can do that again in 2025. And this is the team that won it all in the Big 12 last year. So again, they may not be as good as they were from last year, but just looking at this team right now, I think they actually have the second most returning production coming back in the country in 2025. So the Sun Devils should be pretty good. They definitely are a well-coached team, and this team is looking like they could be one of the top teams in the Big 12 in the future. Colorado may not be as good as they were from last year. They're going to lose plenty of talent on both sides of the football, but I kind of expect Colorado to be right there around maybe 8 or 9 wins at best, but if they do drop like to 7-5 or something, or maybe 6-6, 6-6 probably would be a disappointment. But if they were able to drop to 8-4 or even 7-5, that's not going to shock me one bit here for Colorado. Again, they have a schedule that does get them to to 9-3 with a projection, but again, they're not going to be as good as they were from last year. And like I said, these are not predictions; these are simply projections based off of how each and every team's schedule is. So yeah, based on Colorado's schedule, they are projected to go 9-3. Same thing with Iowa State, they are projected to go 9-3. Now the Cyclones, they may not be as good as they were last year either. This is a team that went to the Big 12 championship. They could probably drop off as well like Colorado does, but Iowa State, based on their schedule, they are projected to go 9-3, and then Kansas State, they're projected to go 9-3. So these four teams are all projected to go 9-3. I think right here you're seeing Arizona State, Colorado, Iowa State, and Kansas State, and then BYU. These are probably your top contenders in the Big 12 in my opinion. But then you got one more team that's projected to go 9-3, and I also think they can probably call themselves a top contender because they have 9 wins on their projection, and that team is Texas Tech. As we go to the next set of teams here, we got Texas Tech projected to go 9-3. Texas Tech, I like the way the schedule sets up for them. They have a pretty favorable schedule for them in 2025, and that that schedule, it just tells me that Texas Tech could become like a top contender in the Big 12. Now I don't know if they can make it to the Big 12 championship, but based on their schedule, they are projected to go 9-3. So if you count the other teams, like those 4 other teams that we just showed you, and then Texas Tech also, that makes 5 top contenders behind BYU. I think BYU might be the top contender right now, and then also you got these other top contenders in the Big 12 behind BYU. But again, based on their schedules, they are all projected to go 9-3, and it's just based off of that schedule. It's not really based off of what the expectations are for 2025. It's really based off of mostly last year. But yeah, those 5 teams, including BYU, I think are your top contenders. And then you got Baylor here that's projected to go 8-4. Baylor's the only team actually to go 8-4 on this projection. Baylor's schedule does give them a decent chance to have a pretty decent year, and they could be like a dark horse contender in the Big 12. They can also be potentially a top 25 team. Yeah, there's a lot of hype around this Baylor team. And I also had them on my way too early top 25, so maybe I'm a little bit high on them, but I don't really want to go that far with them being like a top 15 team or anything like that. But yeah, the Bears, based on their schedule, they are projected to go 8-4 based on how tough their schedule is. They got Auburn in the non-conference on that schedule, but the good news is they get that game at home, so maybe they probably win that game, and then they could probably go on to have a pretty decent year. But if they lose that game, maybe it could be a 6-6 or 7-5 type year for Baylor. But yeah, Baylor is projected to go 8-4 based on their schedule. And then TCU and West Virginia, they're both projected to go 7-5. I kind of expect both of these teams to be right there around 6, 7, 8 wins, somewhere in that win range total. For TCU, I kind of expect them to definitely be there. For West Virginia, don't know how good this team is going to be, but, you know, West Virginia definitely should be right there around 6 or 7 wins. I mean, at worst, I think they will probably go 5-7, but, you know, 6-6 definitely is not a worst case scenario. They can still make it to a bowl game, and they probably can go 7-5 either way. But yeah, these 2 teams, including Baylor, I think these 3 teams are probably your dark horse contenders, because they're sitting right there with 7-5 and then 8-4 with a projection. So yeah, that tells me that these 3 teams are probably going to be your dark horse contenders. And then again, Texas Tech and then all those other 4 teams, they are all projected to go 9-3. And then BYU, those are probably your top contenders. So those 6 teams are probably your top contenders. And then Baylor, TCU, and West Virginia, these are your 3 dark horse teams in the Big 12. Arizona, they're projected to go 5-7. I have so many teams in the Big 12 that are projected to go 5-7. Arizona, we'll see if they can turn things around in 2025 after a pretty disappointing start with their new head coach. I mean, they missed Jed Fish a lot, don't get me wrong, but I think Arizona definitely can probably make it to a bowl game this year. But based on their schedule, they are projected to miss out on a bowl game at 5-7, so by 1 game. I think their best case is definitely making it to a bowl game at 6-6, and then worst case probably like 4-8. So let's now go to the next set of teams that are projected to go 5-7. So we actually have 6 teams projected to go 5-7. You got Cincinnati, Houston, Kansas, Oklahoma State, and then UCF, and then you also count Arizona. That's 6 teams that are projected to go 5-7 in the Big 12. And like I said, there's so much priority in this conference. It's just going to be a wide open conference in the Big 12, and this just makes it exciting conference here for the Big 12 in 2025, and definitely in the history of college football. But you look at Cincinnati, they're projected to go 5-7. We'll see if they can turn things around and finally have a season where they can make it to a bowl game under Scott Satterfield. For Houston, we'll see if Willie Fritz can get it done in his second year. The schedule was pretty tough for them last year. The schedule kind of gets them a chance to probably make it to a bowl game. Kansas and Oklahoma State, these 2 teams were actually like top contenders in the Big 12 from last year, but they're coming off disappointing years. So we'll see if they can have a better turnaround in 2025. But for Kansas, I kind of expect them to turn things around. I mean, they do got a lot, you know, some experience coming back, but not maybe as good as they were from last year. And if you think about it, Kansas actually finished 5-7, and that's what their projection is for them in 2025. I could definitely see Kansas making it back to a bowl game in 2025 as well. For Oklahoma State, Mike Gundy and his team, you know, Oklahoma State may not be as good as they were from last year. They were definitely better than that 3-9 record because they had so much production coming back and everything. But this year, it's going to be a little bit difficult because they do lose their starting quarterback and their star running back from last year, and they're definitely going to have some pieces to fill. But as of right now, Oklahoma State and Kansas, they're both projected to go 5-7 based on their schedules. And then UCF, Scott Frost makes his return here for the Knights. We'll see if he can get this program turned around after Gus Malzahn left to go to a different job and everything. But yeah, UCF, their schedule is not horrible for them. I mean, it could be a lot worse for them them in 2025. They don't have like a really tough non-conference schedule either, because remember last year they had to play Florida on the road. This year they don't have to do that. So yeah, UCF has a schedule that sets up pretty well for them, and I don't really think they play any of those top contenders in the Big 12, like they did from last year. But yeah, UCF, based on their schedule, they are projected to go 5-7. So like I said, 6 teams that are projected to go 5-7. You got UCF, Oklahoma State, Kansas, Houston, and Cincinnati, and then also you got Arizona in that conversation. These 6 teams are all trying to make it to a bowl game, in my opinion, for 2025. The schedules are all pretty similar here for all 6 of these teams. At best, I think the team that has the best chance to make it to a bowl game is probably UCF. I think Kansas has a chance probably, and then maybe Houston, but Cincinnati and Oklahoma State and then Arizona. Those are kind of teams that are kind of hard to tell how good they're going to be. But yeah, you got 6 teams that are all projected to go 5-7 and miss out on a bowl game. But definitely, one of these 6 teams is going to make it to a bowl game. It could be 2 or it could be like 3 out of the 6 here in these 5-7 records. So let's now move on to the last set of team here. We got Utah here at the bottom. And look, I know Utah was not really good last year, and they probably will be better in 2025. But based off of what they did last year, they are projected to just go 4-8. They do have a tough schedule as well. It's not really about the conference schedule for them. They do have a tough Big 12 schedule. The non-conference, though, I don't think it's really that tough either. They got to play UCLA there in the non-conference. But, yeah, Utah, though, they are projected to go 4-8 just based off of what they did from last year. And, again, I'm not saying that Utah is going to be bad. I think they definitely could be better than that 4-8 projection. They can probably make it to a bowl game at best. They could probably be a 6-6 or 7-5 type team. Or if they come out of nowhere and be like a surprise contender in the Big 12, they could probably go 8-4 and be like a dark horse team in the Big 12. But as of right now, I just don't know how good Utah is going to be. Offensively, they got some pieces to fill in there, especially at the quarterback position, and then on defense. They're going to be pretty good on that side of the football. That's probably going to be the strength of this team. And then offensively, again, just so many question marks here for the Utes, but we'll see if they can turn things around in 2025. This is a well-coached team, and this is a really consistent program in the history of college football, but they are projected to go 4-8 for 2025. So that is my official Big 12 football projections for 2025. Do you guys agree and disagree with this projection, for these projections for all the Big 12 teams? And give me your projections for the Big 12 down in the comments below. Thank you for watching this video, and stay tuned for more sports content videos on my Lucas Ross Sports YouTube channel.